For everybody who is comfortable to do so, could I ask you now to please stand as we welcome Olivia Box, a Wiradjuri woman, who will sing the national anthem in both English and the language of her people. Thank you, Olivia. It is now my pleasure to introduce David Hua, the Director, Audio and Language Content at SBS.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that introduction, and gosh, very moved to hear the national anthem performed in that way. Trước khi mình bắt đầu, mình cũng muốn mời mọi người để ý là mình đang gặp ở trên những đất của người Carigu, and I pay my respects to elders past and present as well. Hands up for those of you who speak nói tiếng Việt. Giơ cái tay lên. Okay, I think that's just about everyone, but for those who don't speak English, Vietnamese, sorry, hands up. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick Vietnamese lesson. Có chỉ 2 chữ thôi, okay? It's tự do. So that is and it's a very, very important word for us. It's the reason why so many of us are actually here. It's freedom. It means freedom, tự do. So I'd love for you all, for those who may not speak Vietnamese, just really remember how important that is. That concept of freedom. You can pronounce it any way you like, of course, but remember, in our hearts, as so many Vietnamese Australians, it is about that pull towards freedom. Thank you so much for the acknowledgement of country as well. My work at SBS is the Director of Audio and Language Content. I get the privilege of working with a very, very diverse team, over 60 languages, and I know that Vietnamese is a very, very important community to us, but we do our work across 60 different languages and so many different communities. For that, I'm very, very proud. I was born in Da Nang. Có ai sinh ở Đà Nẵng không? Có quê ở Đà Nẵng không? Dạ đây. And during the Vietnam War, Da Nang Airport was the busiest airport in the whole world. And so you can imagine just how intense the fighting was in that part of the world, and how impactful the war was on the land, on the people, on the environment. And my journey to where I am now includes going by boat out of Vietnam into Hong Kong via pirates, via Hainan Island, and then we stayed in a refugee camp in Hong Kong, which was administered by Britain for about 8 months before we were sponsored to live in a community in Temora. Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to put up your hand who knows where Temora is, because Temora, what? But, oh God. Okay, well, that's wonderful, that's wonderful. Yeah. Temora có chỉ có 4.000 người ở đó. Right, and that community actually sponsored, there's only 4,000 people that live in Temora, but they opened up their homes and they opened up their hearts to welcome our family to live with them. And, you know, so much has happened since then. I'm really, really happy, so proud to be here, and in particular, I really want to thank the CEO of the Maritime Museum of Australia, Darryl Cupp. You're actually one of the reasons why I'm here, not just because of the invitation, but because when I actually told my parents that I wanted to not become a doctor, không muốn làm bác sĩ, không muốn làm lịch sử, I wanted to work in the media. It was, you know, your sort of journalism and your sort of leadership at the ABC at that time that was an inspiration to me. And when I told my mum I wanted to work in the media, she actually said no. And there's very good reasons for that. One is that she felt there's not prestige in working in the media, but also being a journalist in Vietnam is not safe. And that is something that she was mindful of in terms of my future as well. But I really want to share with you 3 moments that I'm really, really proud of in terms of my career. And when I reflect on my career and the opportunities of being in Australia, all of those moments are actually tied to something personal for me as well. So professional really only means something when it's tied to something personal in my life. The first one of those was when I worked at the ABC International, and we broadcast through our television, our radio and our digital services to 44 countries around the world. One of those countries was Vietnam, and Vietnam, of course, is a very, very closed media environment. And about 8 years ago, I travelled to Hanoi, and we opened up more opportunities for ABC Australia, the international television channel, to be open in Vietnam. And that's Australian stories being transmitted into the place of my birth. So a very, very proud moment for me. The second proud moment for me was working at SBS, which is where I'm working now. And about 2 months ago, on Citizenship Day in September, I was asked to speak at Government House in Yarralumbla in Canberra with my husband and with my foster son to launch SBS's project of the national anthem, Australia's national anthem, being re-expressed or translated into over 60 different languages. Now, and that includes Vietnamese, it includes Arabic, it includes so many different languages. And hearing the beautiful voice that we've just heard of the Australian national anthem, it does absolutely bring me to tears when I hear it, even though I don't understand Arabic, even though I don't understand Gujarati or Malayalam or Hindi or so many of the other languages. It brings me to tears when I hear our national anthem in those languages. And I just want to quote the second verse, which wasn't performed just now. You can guess which lines in the anthem they mean, but với người tự xa vượt biên tới, với sự gồng và không phần ai trước sau. For those who come across the seas with boundless plains to share. So I spared you my singing voice. I can sing karaoke sometimes, but you're lucky that I didn't sing for you just now. And the third example in terms of proud moments for me is right now. I see so many people of the community, people that I didn't know were actually going to show up today, friends, my mother, my father who passed away 2 years ago, his name is on the wall. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to actually see our names on that wall and inscribed in that way. Daryl, you've shared your personal story, and this is absolutely mine, and you're absolutely right. The meaning of being inscribed on that means so much in terms of a welcome, as you can see with so many people here today. And I'm particularly proud because I've got my husband here, and I've got my foster son here. And without the freedoms that that Australia affords, whatever the economic opportunities might exist around the world, it is the yaw that brings us here and reminds me always of just how beautiful and wonderful life in Australia can be. I want to end with a personal story. Like so many of us here, nhiều người mình ở đây có bà con, có gia đình ở Việt Nam. So many of us have family and friends in Vietnam, and we travel often overseas and we return. The story that I've got is I was traveling alone, I was very tired, the flight was delayed, I was at the airport, and you can imagine the last thing I wanted to do was get inspected by the customs inspector. You know, the people who check to see whether you've got $10,000, có 10,000 đồng in cash or not, or whether you're traveling with fish or live products. And I was so tired, and I thought, oh, why is this person picking on me? You know, why are they asking me to, you know, show my bag and to, you know, reveal what the contents of my luggage might actually be? And didn't say a word to me at all. Không có nói một câu cũng không có nói với mình. But then he stopped. He handed me back the card, the customs card, and he said, "Welcome home." Because he could see on the customs card that I lived in Australia, and my citizenship was Australian too. And I've never felt more Australian than when someone who didn't know me just said, "Welcome home here." So I hope that all of us who have our names there, or who even don't have our names there, remember always the place of home and the contribution that we all make together here in Australia. Cảm ơn rất nhiều. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I'd now like to introduce Yan Wuan, who came to Australia as an infant in 1974 in what laid the foundations for what became Operation Baby Lift, the humanitarian evacuation that brought hundreds of Vietnamese children to Australia.
Going to take a moment and look at all your beautiful faces. Just give me a second. Distinguished guests, fellow Vietnamese Australians, family and friends. Today, as my name, Yan Wuan, is inscribed on the welcome wall, I am deeply honoured to stand among those who came before me and to leave space for those yet to come. This monument is more than a marker of migration. It affirms that we belong and that our story is now woven into Australia's story. For a child of war who arrived 50 years ago, unsure of where I fitted into this vast land. This recognition means so much. To my fellow adoptees, infants and children separated from our country of birth, I pay tribute to the lifelong journey we share, one heart across two lands. In April 1974, I was one of thousands of children caught up in the chaos of war. At just 3 weeks old, I had no memories of Vietnam. My earliest recognitions are shaped by bewilderment, held deep within my body and my spirit. Even as an infant, my tiny self knew the sensation of being severed from my mother, arriving in a place that was completely foreign. I was a child between two worlds, not belonging to either. I was placed with an Australian family who knew their role was to nurture and care for me, and who hoped that one day I might find my birth family. They gave me a home and a sense of belonging. Growing up, I navigated two identities. At school, I was a child who looked different, whose name teachers stumbled over, and who had to explain why my family didn't match. At home, I was simply their child, loved and cared for. Australia became the only home I knew, yet I always felt the pull of another place, an invisible thread connecting to me to a country I couldn't remember but couldn't forget. Being adopted into Australia is beautifully complicated. It is gratitude and grief intertwined, privilege and loss side by side. I'm grateful for the life I've been given, for the opportunities, education and safety, yet I carry questions that may never be answered about birth families I may never know, about siblings whose names are lost to history, but about a mother who faced an impossible choice. My inscription on the welcome wall honours not just my journey, but the stories of all war-affected children who came to Australia. We are living bridges between nations, Vietnamese in heritage, Australian in upbringing, always navigating both identities. 50 years later, I stand here as proof that beautiful lives can emerge from the devastation of war. I have built a family, contributed to this community, and found my place in this multicultural nation. I carry Vietnam in my face and in my heart. I carry Australia in my voice, my values, and my sense of home. To my adoptive family, thank you. Thank you for seeing a child worthy of love. For celebrating my Vietnamese heritage as you learned it alongside me. For giving me roots in Australian soil while honouring the culture I came from. To my fellow Vietnamese Australians gathered here, whether you arrived as children, refugees, immigrants, or among the first generation born in Australia, we share something profound. We are now part of this nation's story. Our food, festivals, resilience, and contributions are woven into the fabric of modern Australia. Let us not only honour survival, but also the cost. Let us remember the families torn apart, the children who never made it out, and the impossible choices made in the most difficult times. Today, as my name is etched into this monument, I'm thinking about that frightened baby who arrived half a century ago, unable to imagine this moment. I wish I could tell her, you will find a home, you will build a life, you will matter, and one day this country will acknowledge that you belong here. To everyone who has played a role in my journey and my fellow adoptees, my Australian family, the Vietnamese Australian community who helped me connect to my heritage and this nation that gave me refuge, thank you. I'm honoured to have my name on this wall, standing alongside the millions who have made Australia their home. We are all part of this story, and today we celebrate that together. Thank you.
So today we honour you. Thank you for the privilege of hearing the story. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker, a writer, musician and lawyer, Tong Dak Luong, who arrived in Australia in 1975 when he was 4 years old.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly blessed and really happy and lucky to be alive. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge those people, the many people who did not survive their refugee boat journey at sea. Hello, and in Vietnamese, I'm told to say Xin chào quý vị. Sorry, I can't speak more Vietnamese because I'm not fluent. My name is Tong Dak Luong. As mentioned, I have many occupations and I don't know which one I do all the time. I'm told my name is pronounced Thắng, which means to win or victory. On the last day of the Vietnam War, the 30th of April 1975, my family and I escaped the former city of Saigon as the Communist Army took control of it. My late father, he was a journalist. His name was Luong Ngọc Hải. As a journalist, he feared for his life. I was 4 years old, and around lunchtime that day, our large cargo boat left the Saigon River as tanks surrounded Saigon. I felt fear walking up the gangplank. Our cargo boat was called the Trường Xuân, which means eternal spring. Our boat carried 3,628 refugees from a cross-section of society, including former members of the South Vietnamese government, army, police, professional people, families, priests, nuns, and even a monk. But our boat was sinking. 100 tons of water was leaking per hour into the engine room. Then a Danish cargo boat, the Clara Maersk, and its captain answered the Mayday message of the captain of our boat. On day 2 of our journey, we were rescued. It was a miracle. It took another 2 days to get to Hong Kong, and we spent 6 weeks there in a refugee camp. At the time, Queen Elizabeth was in Hong Kong and she was aware of our situation. On the 20th of June 1975, we arrived in Sydney by a Qantas plane. We were among the first few hundred Vietnamese to arrive. After a few years, when I was 8, my family broke down and there was trauma. I only lived with my father and my sister in the municipality of Marrickville. What we kids lacked in money, we gained in hours of playtime. In the 70s and 80s, I loved hanging out all day with friends from different migrant backgrounds on the streets of Marrickville. As a kid, I loved climbing trees and catching green cicadas. These green grocers, as they're called, were quirky and loud. I wrote a song about them, and I've been singing it because they always return, just like a fond memory. I remember the 80s, and there were too many of us teenagers with mullets and buffed up hair. We used gel, mousse, hairspray, and we kidded ourselves by pretending to look like rock stars. But the fun we had covered my internal struggle. Growing up, I never had any meaningful conversation with my mum or dad in Vietnamese. I had lost contact with mum, and I was not emotionally close to dad. Despite our hardships, for me, being Australian has always meant having a go. In this land of the fair go, through opportunity and hard work, my family strive to succeed. Yes, I've succeeded. Sometimes, though, you can make mistakes along the way, and it can result in failure. I've made mistakes and even failed. That's okay. In Australia, opportunity keeps welcoming me. I'm here today because my dad's name is inscribed on a national monument. As a journalist, he would have loved this monument. He carried his ID card all the way from Saigon, and after he died, I began to appreciate the significance of his ID card because he never returned there. whenever I go to holiday in Vietnam, I bring it with me and I take pictures with it and the background, the scenery of Vietnam. I've had mental health counselling, and I've learned that by telling stories about this card and my father's story, I can reconcile the past with the present. Having my dad's name and our family acknowledged on the National Monument symbolised my love for Mum, Dad, my family in Australia. It's over 50 years since the Vietnam War ended, and today I would like to thank the people of Australia and the government for giving us the privilege to become Australians and to contribute to Australian society. We are forever grateful. Thank you.
Earlier this year, I was honoured to attend an event hosted by Australia for UNHCR, where I had the privilege of meeting Commissioner Yan Wuan, the Commissioner of the National Fair Work Commission, Australia's Workplace Relations Tribunal. I'm very honoured that the Commissioner has travelled here to Sydney today to share her story with us. Commissioner Wuan.
Thank you, everyone. Xin chào quý vị. I pay my deep respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I understand a little about the pain of dispossession from country. Despite not living in the land of his birth for more than half of his life, my father had a deep and abiding connection to land. The story of my family's departure from Vietnam is particularly my father's story, so my family have honoured that by adding his name to the welcome hall. My extended family, mostly on my mother's side, left Vietnam in fits and starts in the immediate aftermath of the fall of Saigon. I'm the youngest of 8 children. My parents made the incredible decision to send us separately. Before I was born, my eldest brother left with my grandparents. When I was barely 1, my next eldest brother and my second eldest sister left with aunts and uncles. And when I was 2, we left. My parents, a brother, and 3 sisters, most of us under 10. We left Vietnam in my father's fishing boat. He'd coordinated about 30 men, women and children to travel together. But on the night of our departure, more than 50 people turned up to get on a boat no larger than maybe 2 cars end to end. My dad captained that boat. He'd been calculated and careful in all the decisions he'd made about our journey. But he did not turn anyone away. We tell lots of stories of our journey, but I'll tell you just one, because it's about me. I used to think it was funny, but as I've got older, I've realised we used humour to process and maybe mask the terror and the trauma. And perhaps it's this humour that has helped us thrive. We left Vietnam in 1982. By then, the dangers of the journey were well known. The distance, the pirates, and the uncertain welcome at the other end. My father had painted sticks to make them look like guns, so that we could pretend to be pirates if attacked. We were attacked. The men stood around, shouting and brandishing those sticks. The women and children hid. But I did not want to hide. I wanted to get in on the action. My father had to sit on me so that my 2-year-old boisterousness did not give us away. My mother managed my other 4 siblings, a bit older and with much better sense to be scared. Let me conclude by skipping forward to say that everyone on that boat arrived safely in Malaysia. We all spent about a year in the UN High Commission for Refugee camp in Pulau Bedong in Malaysia before my family were eventually and wholly reunited in Australia, which is something very special and something very privileged. While the story of my journey is all about my father, it was my mother who was the impetus for our departure. Her bravery, her desire for the family to be together somewhere we had an opportunity to thrive. And we have. I'm here because of my parents' courage and sacrifice. My success is public and a little bit ostentatious. All my brothers and sisters are great successes in their own quiet lives without my spotlight or platform. And so too, our next generation, my 17 nieces and nephews, and my daughter. I'm honoured to be here today, to be part of the unveiling of the next panel of the Welcome Wall, the extensiveness of which is testament to the refugees and migrants being the very fabric of Australian society. It was only 50 years ago that we here needed a safe harbour. 50,000 years ago, it was Australia's First Nations. 5 years ago, people from the Middle East and Africa. As long as conflict and disaster continues around the world, I hope we as a society remember where we've come from, that being here has given us the chance to make a life and to be kind and generous enough to welcome all others who need a safe place to eventually call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tran. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking all of our presenters today.
Ba người Úc gốc Việt đã đến từ Việt Nam với 3 câu chuyện khác nhau. Tuy nhiên tất cả đều là những cái cuộc hành trình rất là gian nan và mọi người đã thành công. Đầu tiên hết là Suyan, một người phụ nữ đã đến đây vào năm 1974 khi cô chỉ mới 3 tháng tuổi thông qua chương trình Baby Clip và một cái chương trình giải cứu trẻ em. Và giờ đây thì cô đã trưởng thành trong một cái gia đình người Úc. Người thứ nhì là luật sư, nhà văn, nhạc sĩ Dương Đức Khánh, người đến Úc vào năm 1975 và cũng đã có câu chuyện rất là thành công sau một cái chuyến hải trình khá là vất vả. Người thứ ba là cô Trần Thủy Oanh, Commissioner, là một trong những cái vị trí quan trọng nhất của Hội làm việc công bằng mà đài VIET của chúng tôi cũng đã có cơ hội phỏng vấn trực tiếp cô Trần Thủy Oanh và chúng tôi xin cảm ơn tất cả những bài phát biểu vừa rồi.
Please stay with us this afternoon. The museum will be open until 4 p.m. And in front of the museum, we have a number of authentic Vietnamese food trucks and stalls. We have paper boat making craft and workshops as well. At 3:30 today, our migration curator Roland will be delivering a talk in and around New York, which is situated just over here toward the front of the museum. You can play a vital role in securing Dior's future as well. We need your help to move it from its temporary storage to an ongoing display where its story can inspire future generations. And we invite you to support this project by making a donation. Please ask any of our team for information in relation to that.
Vâng, thưa quý vị, phần nghi lễ chính thức của chúng ta đã kết thúc và giờ đây thì quý vị sẽ có thời gian để để chúng ta cùng nhau tìm hiểu xem cái dòng tên của mình đã được khắc ở vị trí nào trên cái bức tường Welcome Hall ở vị trí trước mặt của Kim Hoàng. Ngoài ra thì chúng tôi cũng tiếp tục nhận ghi danh của những người chưa có những cái tên trong ngày hôm nay, là bởi vì cái sự làm việc vất vả của đài VJ, thay vì chỉ có một cái tấm bảng thôi thì chúng ta đã có quá nhiều người đăng ký, cho nên Bảo tàng Hàng hải đã phải mở thêm tấm bảng thứ nhì. Và khi chúng tôi mở thêm tấm bảng thứ nhì thì nó vẫn còn một vài chỗ trống, và những chỗ trống đó Kim Hoàng rất hy vọng ngày hôm nay tất cả quý vị của chúng ta có mặt nơi đây, chúng ta sẽ điền tên mình vào những chỗ trống còn lại để cộng đồng người Việt của chúng ta có được 2 cái bảng tên ngay tại cái vị trí vô cùng quan trọng này. Ngoài ra thì quý vị quan khách cũng có thể thưởng thức ẩm thực Việt Nam của chúng tôi đang được phục vụ ở ngoài sau lưng của sân khấu, và đặc biệt vào lúc 3 giờ 30 phút chiều thì chúng tôi sẽ có một cái buổi nói chuyện về chiếc tàu tự do. Đây là một trong những cái dự án quan trọng nhất của Viện Bảo tàng Hàng hải Quốc gia. Chiếc tàu tự do đang đậu ở trong kho tàng. Chúng tôi chưa có một cái mái nhà cho cái chiếc tàu tự do này, và buổi lễ ngày hôm nay vẫn hy vọng là nhận được cái sự đóng góp của tất cả các mạnh thường quân để chúng tôi có một cái căn nhà cho chiếc tàu tự do, và từ đó thì chúng ta có thể tiếp tục lan truyền những cái câu chuyện, những cái hành trình người Việt đã đến Úc như thế nào thông qua cái chiếc tàu tự do đó. Tuy nhiên Bảo tàng Hàng hải không thể làm được nếu không có sự giúp đỡ của quý vị, và do đó Kim Hoàng một lần nữa rất mong nhận được sự tài trợ của quý quan khách ngày hôm nay.
If you are interested in adding your name to the National Monument to Migration, and we still have room left on the Vietnamese community panel, please see the team who can assist you with that over by the welcome wall. And finally, please visit the museum while you're here. As I mentioned, our exhibitions are open until 4 p.m. today, and it is free for you to attend. Thank you again for attending today to celebrate the lives and contributions of those that we have honoured in today's monument unveiling. We look forward to welcoming you back again.
Bên cạnh đó thì chúng ta cũng có thể tham quan bảo tàng, bởi vì Viện Bảo tàng sẽ mở cửa miễn phí hoàn toàn cho việc tham quan của chúng tôi cho đến 4 giờ chiều ngày hôm nay. Thank you very much.